The young woman returned to her room, only to be shocked to discover a man lying on the floor, covered in blood. Outside, agents from the National Security Agency were conducting a frantic search, trying to find someone. Just who is this man, really? And will he manage to escape the police pursuit? Let's dive into the show to find out. Our protagonist, Yoon Young-ro, is a kind and vivacious young woman who's currently a student at Honshu Women's University, a school with very strict rules. Because she was out late, she had to risk climbing the wall to make it back in time for roll call. Gripping the wall tightly, her legs trembling, she moved one step at a time. Just a single slip could send her falling at any moment. Inside, the headmistress was conducting a room-by-room inspection, flipping over every blanket and checking under each bed to make sure no one was breaking the rules. Young-ro's roommates were incredibly tense and worried for her, because the school has a rule that if you're absent during roll call, you're immediately expelled. Just as Young-ro reached her room's window, the resident supervisor was entering the door. Bun-ok immediately screamed, saying she'd just seen a huge rat, which turned the dorm into a chaotic mess. Taking advantage of the distraction, her friends quickly pulled Young-ro inside and helped her change into her pajamas. They successfully fooled the supervisor. After she left, they all collapsed onto their beds, breathing sighs of relief. Suddenly, Young-ro remembered that she'd left the rice cake box her grandmother made for her at the dorm entrance. She immediately ran down to the security guard's room to ask for it back, then offered him some as a thank you. The security guard was a kind and good-natured man, often covering for the female students when they returned late, so everyone at the school liked him very much. Before going back to her room, Young-ro made sure to bring some rice cakes to Bun-ok's room to thank her for helping her earlier. Bun-ok also asked if she could find her an English copy of Romeo and Juliet. She happily agreed, then returned to her room with her friends and put on a music show. 4 girls, 4 different personalities, but they were always happy, together experiencing the best days of their college lives. The next morning, Young-ro brought the Romeo and Juliet book she'd found to Bun-ok. At the time, Bun-ok was sitting at the school's public phone booth. They sat and chatted together. Just then, a call came in. Young-ro helped Bun-ok answer the phone. On the other end of the line was a man who greatly admired the curly-haired girl. His name is Gwang-tae, and he's constantly boasting about having just passed an incredibly rigorous civil service exam that few people could manage. But Young-ro doesn't seem particularly interested. However, when she heard an offer for a group blind date, her face immediately changed. She quickly jotted down the time and location of the meeting. After Young-ro confirmed that Jeong-min wouldn't be attending, Bun-ok asked if she could come along. Seeing Young-ro's hesitation, she pretended to cry, saying that since she wasn't a student, it would be very difficult for her to have an opportunity for a group date like this. Faced with Bun-ok's complaints and sob stories, Young-ro had no choice but to turn around and convince Hae-do to let her join. Although she didn't like it because she thought bringing a non-student was deceiving the guys, remembering how Bun-ok had saved the whole dorm during roll call, Hae-do reluctantly agreed. Finally, the day the 4 girls had been waiting for arrived. At the cafe, the 4 guys were there early, eagerly anticipating the girls' arrival. In contrast to Gwang-tae's impatience, the male lead sat calmly, arranging matchsticks into a tall castle. Gwang-tae hurriedly stood up, intending to introduce himself, but accidentally knocked over the male lead's matchstick tower. He and Young-ro both reached out to try to catch the tower. The moment their eyes met, it made the heart of a young girl like Young-ro flutter. After waiting for Bun-ok to arrive, everyone sat down together to chat. After some conversation, they decided to choose their partners by having the girls select an item representing each guy. The girls had to close their eyes while the guys placed their items on the table. Once the 4 items were displayed, the girls each chose an item they liked. Bun-ok immediately went for the paper airplane because she knew it was Suho's. Hae-ryung picked up the civil service certificate. When the female lead reached for a lighter, the guy in the jean jacket shook his head. She reached for a pen, and he rolled his eyes to signal no. She was about to grab it when Bun-ok quickly snatched up the paper airplane. The male lead and Young-ro exchanged disappointed glances. After the less than satisfying blind date, Young-ro went into a bookstore and put on her favorite song. An image of Suho popped into her head, causing her to excitedly sing aloud, accompanied by some clumsy dance moves. This drew the attention of everyone, including the male lead. He smiled, thinking this girl was interesting. As she quickly went outside, she accidentally bumped into the male lead. She wondered why he wasn't at the concert with Bun Okay. Soo-ho nonchalantly said that he was quite busy, and didn't forget to subtly tease, "Didn't you also break up with my friend?" Young-ro, embarrassed, quickly went to the cashier, but because she didn't have enough money, she felt doubly awkward, and had to leave her cassette tape behind and go home. Soo-ho called her back, gave her the tape and said it was a meeting gift, and then quickly left. Young-ro hurried after him. At a tree, he noticed police officers checking people, so he turned into an alley. The female lead also ran in. She put the tape in her bag. Immediately, the police officers rushed over to check if he was the person they were looking for. Understanding the situation, Young-ro immediately pretended to be a couple having an argument with him. Seeing this, the police officers regretfully left, fearing that intervention would cause a family breakup. It was then that Young-ro regained her composure. Soo-ho then teased her, telling her she should be an actress instead of a singer, making her blush with embarrassment, and she awkwardly left. Soo-ho chased after her, wanting to say something, but when he noticed that someone was following him, he immediately stopped. He fell silent immediately. Young-ro looked at him with expectant eyes, but he simply handed her the tape, said thank you, and then left. Knowing that she might not get another chance to see him, she threw all shame to the wind and ran after him. Using the excuse of wanting to thank him for the tape, she invited him for coffee the next day. However, despite Young-ro's anticipation, the male lead didn't show up. A month later, he and two teammates went to pick up Professor Han, unaware that they were being followed by agents from the National Security Agency. Short Hair ordered a car to ram into Soo-ho's vehicle. The impact knocked Professor Han and one of his teammates unconscious. Despite a head injury, the driver noticed the police approaching, opened the car door, and fled. Soo-ho, likewise, used his strength to break open the back door and escape. The police immediately gave chase. At that moment, a military drill was taking place in the streets in preparation for the upcoming presidential election. Suddenly, an alarm blared, causing complete chaos in the streets. Soo-ho climbed through a window and fell into a room. Meanwhile, the police followed the trail of blood and arrived at the dormitory. Young-ro was the first to return to her room. When she saw the lamp on the table knocked over, she sensed that something was wrong. Slowly approaching the window, she was horrified to find a man covered in blood lying on the floor. Even more surprisingly, that man was Soo-ho. After regaining her composure, Young-ro quickly wiped up the blood. Girly Girl opened the door to the room and, terrified, fell to the floor. Curly Hair and Short Hair hastily returned to the room. Seeing the scene before them, they froze in shock. They debated how to handle the situation. While Young-ro and Short Hair insisted on hiding him, thinking he was a protesting student being pursued, Curly Hair and Girly Girl wanted to turn the male lead over to the police for fear of getting into trouble themselves. After some internal debate, they decided to help the male lead get past the police. In the principal's office, the atmosphere was incredibly tense. Fortunately, Gang-moo intervened and told her to calmly return and request a search warrant, since if he was still here, he was like a mouse in a trap and wouldn't be able to escape. While waiting for the warrant, the police moved outside to examine the surroundings and pinpointed the room where Soo-ho had entered, based on the remaining blood trail. Immediately, Hana, holding the search warrant, rushed to Young-ro's room 207. They tried to open the door but found it locked from the inside. The police kicked down the door but found the room empty, except for Curly Hair. The principal discovered a blood stain in the corner of the wall. However, instead of exposing it, she covered for Curly Hair when questioned by the police. She revealed that the remaining girls in the room were in the public bathhouse. At this moment, inside the bathhouse, Soo-ho was hidden under a storage bench by the three girls. When they heard people trying to break in, they decided to pull down their pants to create the most realistic scene possible. Outside, the principal was trying to prevent the police from entering for fear that it would affect the honor of the girls bathing inside. Understanding this, Hana decided to investigate alone. As soon as she stepped inside, she heard the melodious singing of three girls. Although terrified, they continued to sing, attempting to distract themselves and reassure one another. While Hana was checking the bathroom, suddenly Suho's blood started flowing onto the floor, startling all three of them. This made Hana suspicious, and she approached them, asking, "Why are you so scared? Why are you crying?" Faced with Hana's questions, they all fell silent. The blood kept spreading across the floor, getting closer and closer to Hana's feet. Young-ro, summoning all her courage, stood up and yelled at the police officer. "You just barged in here, carrying a gun. Of course, we're going to be scared." Hana then realized she was holding a gun. She forced a smile, and then quickly left. Suho, who had been hiding in the storage box, finally breathed a sigh of relief. They hid Suho in the closet, after which the cute girl and the girl with short hair went back outside, while the protagonist stayed behind to clean the floor. "I wanted to repay you for buying me that roll of tape." With that, she closed the door and went back to her room. Inside the government building, the politicians were loudly singing their victory song. Defense Minister Chansu received a phone call informing him that 2 North Korean spies had escaped, with only the driver and Professor Han captured. Afterward, he informed the ruling party secretary, Nam-T, that they were working together on Project Phoenix by funneling money to North Korea to bring the professor and 2 opposition leaders to South Korea. They planned to take some photos and leak them to the press, saying the other side was using money to try to get ahead of the president. But now, the plan had failed, threatening Nam-T's chances of winning the election. Angrily, he went to Dr. Kang's office to vent. She advised him not to overthink things and to just go to Beijing for the meeting. In a dark room, the police were interrogating Suho's comrade, but no matter how hard they tried, he wouldn't reveal any information, only chanting, "Long live the Democratic People's Republic of Korea." Taking advantage of a moment when the police weren't paying attention, the next day, the male lead was feeling better, but the police were still guarding outside, trapping him in the dormitory. If they left him like this, he would surely be discovered. Everyone discussed moving Suho to the 4th floor, where there was a room that had been abandoned for years. No one dared to go near it because of ghost stories. Young-ro ran down to ask the security guard to open the room. The security guard was initially hesitant, but when he heard the protagonist and the girl with short hair confirm that Suho was just a student protester being pursued, he agreed to help right away. That night, they put their plan into action. The 4 of them moved stealthily and quietly upstairs. When they entered the room, they all felt a chill down their spines. Despite being pale with fear, Young-ro loudly reassured everyone. "Calm down. There are no ghosts in this world." Then, the short-haired girl urged them to pack up their belongings, while Young-ro helped the male lead bandage his wound. Naturally clumsy, Young-ro was now flustered by the close proximity to Suho's flawless 6-pack body, leaving her speechless. The next morning, Young-ro woke up early, stuffed her backpack with boxes, and joined the girly girl downstairs in the cafeteria to collect food. With their miraculous food-hiding abilities, the 2 girls quickly amassed enough food for the male lead to eat for an entire week. Young-ro returned to her room, grabbed the curly-haired girl's electric kettle, and happily went to brush her teeth and wash her face in the communal bathroom. Once finished, she brought the food up to the male lead. They agreed on a special knock to identify each other and then shared stories about their loved ones. Young-ro revealed that her brother had been forced into military service for participating in protests. That was also the reason why she wanted to help him. While talking to Bun-ok, she was reminded to be careful because the headmistress suspected the female lead's room. This made Young-ro very worried. Could the headmistress have discovered something? But regardless of her worries, Young-ro still had to bring dinner to her crush. She questioned him about the necklace he was wearing. After hearing the male lead say it was a gift from a female friend, she suddenly felt a pang of discomfort. She made an excuse about unfinished homework and left the room. The next morning, she was sulking and refused to get up, but because the girly girl kept nagging her, she reluctantly brought food up to the male lead. However, this time she didn't stay to chat like usual and immediately left. Suho brought the lunchbox into the room, but accidentally knocked over a chair, causing the people reading in the library downstairs to scatter in fear. That day was Saturday, the day the dormitory opened for family to visit students. Young-ro's brother was on leave and came to visit his sister. He shouted her name from downstairs. Hearing her brother calling, Young-ro ran down and embraced him happily like a child. That evening, while Young-ro was delivering food, Soo-ho asked her about the man from the morning and found out it was her brother. He also told Young-ro that the necklace was a gift from his sister when he left for the military, which is why it was so important to him. Hearing this, the female lead smiled. So, her sulking from yesterday was all for nothing. Young-ro stood up to leave but accidentally knocked over a glass of water. She quickly grabbed a towel, wiped it dry, and went to wash it. However, due to the dilapidated state of the building, the water leaked to the floor below. From the strange noise they had heard before, along with the incident today, another student was certain that someone was on the upper floor. She immediately reported it to the headmistress. The headmistress called the security guard and quickly went to investigate. The lovebirds, meanwhile, were still busy drawing a map of the dormitory to find a way to safely get Soo-ho out, unaware of the danger that was approaching. On the way, the security guard shouted loudly to signal for the two to escape quickly. He pretended to search for the keys to buy them time. When opening the door and stepping inside, he intentionally damaged the light to prevent anyone from seeing clearly. After looking around, the headmistress realized someone had been there, but no matter where she searched, she couldn't find anyone. Outside, the two were standing on a small wall. Young-ro fearfully clung to the male lead. Suddenly, Young-ro slipped and fell. Soo-ho tried to hold onto her hand tightly, hearing a noise outside. The headmistress opened the window to look, but still didn't see anything different. Because she found nothing unusual, the headmistress left. She instructed the security guard to keep the room key for himself since no one was inside. Soo-ho carried the female lead inside the room. He made her a cup of coffee, held her hand to comfort her and reduce her stress. After calming down, she noticed that his wound was bleeding a lot. She quickly helped him bandage it up, and then reminded him not to walk around to avoid making the wound worse. As she was about to return to her room, Young-ro discovered the door was locked from the outside. The short-haired girl, realizing it was late and she hadn't come back, worriedly went to find the security guard. Luckily, he still had a spare key and immediately went to open the door for Young-ro. Not wanting to put Young-ro in any more danger, the male lead decided to leave that very night. The security guard led them out through a secret passage, but unexpectedly, the police were already waiting there. They had no choice but to take Soo-ho back to the room. Soon, the school would be holding an open house event. This is a special occasion, happening only once a year. On this day, the school will hold fun activities and open its doors for strangers to come and socialize and make friends. All the girls are eagerly looking forward to that day to meet their other half. Young-ro knew this was a rare opportunity to help the male lead get out of the school. They carefully planned it together. Out there, the police had gone to Soo-ho's apartment to look for information about Gwang-tae. After finding out that Soo-ho was a North Korean agent, they were very surprised. He promised the police he would report to them immediately if he had any information about him, even though he had no information on Soo-ho. But the police still didn't give up. The male lead was also training, preparing for an upcoming battle, because he knew that after leaving this place, he would no longer have peaceful days like he did here. While Young-ro was sitting and talking with Bun Ok at the phone booth, her three roommates came rushing over, full of anger. Something serious must have happened. When they arrived, seeing the headmistress also standing there, their confidence diminished somewhat. The headmistress called the three in to ask what was wrong and learned that the curly-haired girl and the princess girl had their rings and expensive shoes stolen. They suspected Bun Ok took them, because the short-haired girl had seen her wearing the stolen shoes of another female student at school. The principal called Bun Ok into her office for a talk. She knew that the missing items around the school were all taken by her, and she demanded that Bun Ok return everything to its original place. The principal would let it slide this time, but only once. With only 3 days left until the open house, there was a rule that male students attending had to wear suits. Therefore, Young-ro went home to get her brother's suit for Soo-ho. As soon as she entered the house, she came face to face with her stepmother. Without saying a word, she went straight upstairs to get her brother's suit. As she was about to leave, her stepmother said some nasty things, bringing up Young-ro's late mother. which made Young-ro angrily smash a family photo. The stepmother immediately slapped her hard across the face. Knowing there was nothing she could do, Young-ro just held in her anger and left. Back at school, the long-awaited open house finally arrived. Today, Young-ro was wearing a beautiful pastel pink dress, looking like a refined young lady. Soo-ho, in his suit, walked down with her, and they looked like a real couple. While everyone was gathered to watch dancing, a friend pushed her into the middle of the crowd, and they all chanted her name, making the female lead feel awkward. The male lead stepped in and invited her to dance amidst the amazed looks and cheers from everyone under the sparkling lights. They moved together with graceful, synchronized steps. She also remembered the wonderful memories of the two of them from the first day they met. When the music stopped, she realized it was just her imagination. Quickly shaking it off, she pulled away. The short-haired girl was waiting outside. They had a bicycle ready and told him to leave quickly. Soo-ho glanced at Young-ro for a long moment and then got on the bike to leave. Then the short-haired girl said that if Young-ro went with him, it would be less suspicious. The female lead sat on the bike and put her arms around Soo-ho. The male lead's heart skipped a beat, but he tried to stay calm as he pedaled the bike, taking Young-ro away from the school. They rode together down roads covered in fallen yellow leaves. Young-ro, sitting behind him, reminded him to look for her in room 207, to call the school's phone number when he was free, and not to forget her. To her lingering words, the male lead remained silent, not saying a thing. But Young, behind them, couldn't see the hint of sadness that was clear on his face. After riding for a while, they reached the school gate. Young-ro tried to look cheerful as she said goodbye to the male lead, but as he was about to leave, she reached out and grabbed his hand. Then, after thinking for a moment, she decided to let go so he could leave. Soo-ho went a little way and then turned back, giving her the necklace he always wore. Gwang Tae, on the upper floor, recognized Soo-ho and immediately called the police. The sweet girl saw this and quickly ran down to tell Soo-ho to escape quickly. When the police arrived, he was gone, so they angrily called Gwang Tae in for questioning, scolding him. He cried and begged and promised to be more careful before reporting something next time. After leaving the school, the male lead went to see Jun. Jun was actually sent by his superiors to monitor Soo-ho. When they discovered he was having unorthodox thoughts, they decided to eliminate him, even though Jun told the male lead that the higher-ups had ordered a cancellation of the old plan and that a new organization would be working with them soon. Bun Ok saw Soo-ho and the female lead laughing and talking happily together at the festival. Enraged, she called Young-ro into a room to talk and then unleashed a barrage of criticism upon her. She accused Young-ro of secretly being involved with the male lead. Bun Ok returned to her room, intending to tear up her invitation in anger, when she discovered that only those with an invitation could attend the festival. She immediately checked the guest list and found that Soo-ho wasn't even invited. So how did he get into the school? After monitoring and eavesdropping on her conversation with the security guard, Bun Ok called the police, intending to report Young-ro to receive the 50 million won reward. But then, the headmistress arrived and snatched the phone away. Bun Ok had no choice but to tell the headmistress the truth about what she discovered. She led her down to the security guard's room and pulled out a backpack from the closet, inside which were the male lead's clothes and a blood-stained towel. The headmistress furiously fired the security guard and then warned Bun Ok not to report to the police, as that would not only prevent her from getting the reward, but would also damage the school's reputation for concealing a spy. Afterward, she ordered Bun Ok to summon room 207 for a meeting. Faced with undeniable evidence, they admitted to helping Soo-ho and insisted he was just a protesting student, not a North Korean spy. The headmistress went ballistic and expelled the entire group. Young-ro knelt down and took all the blame upon herself, begging the headmistress to forgive her friends. Moved by the female lead's sincere plea, the headmistress decided to expel only Young-ro. The others were cut off from outside contact. The male lead received a call from his father. Upon learning that Soo-ho was alive, he was overjoyed. He ordered him to return to Pyongyang to take on a new assignment in Beijing. At this time, Soo-ho's father, also the North Korean minister, was having dinner with Nam Tae. They were executing Project Phoenix to help Nam Tae smoothly ascend to the presidency. However, due to the fact that North Korea demanded 4 times the initially agreed upon amount of money, NAMT suggested that Chan Su leverage his position as Minister of National Defense to withdraw funds from the national budget. When the plan succeeds, he assured Chan Su that he would not mistreat him. Yong-ro, having been expelled, went to a church seeking divine guidance, asking for prayers for Su-ho's safety, and if possible, for her to meet him one more time. Su-ho, at that moment, was also thinking about her, the lingering images of her from their farewell constantly flashing through his mind. Perhaps his longing for her was as great as hers, only he was too good at hiding his emotions. The next day, he disguised himself as a priest and went to the church to approach Professor Han Su-ho, the man who had threatened his son's life, forcing him to agree to cooperate. Professor Han got into a taxi, unaware that the driver was Jun. He immediately drove him away. Hana quickly followed, but at an intersection, Jun's men cut her off. Jun took Professor Han to their base where he met the male lead. Su-ho advised him to obediently go with them to North Korea. Once their business was done, they would secretly return him and his son to their country to ensure his son's safety. He agreed to go with them. They split up. One group went to Orong Mountain to retrieve money and weapons, while the others would take Professor Han away. They would gather on the boat at exactly 10 p.m. The police had also discovered Su-ho's coded signal and deciphered that he would be going to the dormitory. Today was the day Yong-ro had to move out of the dormitory. She was worried that if Su-ho returned, he wouldn't be able to find her, so she poured out her feelings into a letter, hoping that one day Su-ho would read these words. The male lead was now up on Orong Mountain retrieving money to return to his country. After digging up a pile of money and weapons, he put them in his backpack and headed back. As he was passing by the fence behind the dormitory, he spotted a paper airplane stuck in the branches. Looking at how it was folded, he knew that it was hers. Su-ho unfolded it and read the letter, which was full of Yong-ro's heartfelt complaints. She was reproaching him for not calling her even once, and also revealing that she missed him terribly. Faced with the female lead's emotional outpouring, Su-ho felt a deep pang of pain. Suddenly, a junkie approached. He thought the male lead was lurking around the female students, so he cursed him out. Just then, the police appeared. The male lead immediately ran off. The junkie, thinking the police were there to arrest him, also frantically ran with the male lead. He led him to a hut on the mountain, where they both hid in a secret passage. Behind them, the police quickly surrounded the hut, but when they pushed the door open, there was no one inside. The junkie thought that it was loan sharks looking for him to collect interest, so he was trembling with fear. But when he found out that they were looking for Su-ho, he pulled out a knife, intending to stab the male lead with a simple thrust. At this moment, a man emerged from the secret passage, and he tied both of them to the door. But the police stormed into the school dormitory lobby, causing yet another chaotic scene. Gang Mu went down to the basement, only to be ambushed from behind by Nam Jeong. The two men engaged in a brawl. After subduing Gang Mu, Su-ho ran up to the lobby to find that the main entrance was surrounded. At the same time, Yong-ro came running down from the upper floor. Su-ho turned away, avoiding her shocked gaze, faced with an extremely precarious situation. He and Yong-ro took each other hostage, demanding that the police not approach. Tears welled up in Yong-ro's eyes, not just from fear, but also from disappointment. She couldn't believe that the man she trusted, the man she had longed for day and night, was now holding a gun to her head. Su-ho's comrades appeared, and so the two sides began a frenzied exchange of gunfire. Everyone fearfully ran upstairs, seeing Yong-ro frightened, trembling in a corner. He knew he had to do something to quickly end this dangerous battle. After 30 minutes of intense fighting, the National Security Agency's riot shields arrived to back up the police, putting Nam Jeong at a disadvantage. He made a risky decision, aiming at the chandelier's support cable, causing it to fall and distract everyone. In the midst of the confusion, he took a grenade, attached it to himself, and dragged Yong-ro outside. He directly pulled the pin on the grenade and threatened that if they didn't drop their weapons, everyone would die. Seeing his cold, fierce face, Gang Mu knew it wasn't an empty threat, so he ordered everyone to retreat, while he remained behind as a hostage to protect them. After all the police had withdrawn, they gathered everyone downstairs into the lobby for easier control. Then they forced 3 girls to stand in front of the windows, preventing the police from attacking from the outside. Bun Ok blamed everything on Yong-ro, making her feel incredibly remorseful. If she hadn't helped him that day, would things have gotten to this point? She had aided the enemy. She had betrayed her country. After washing the blood off his face, the male lead went downstairs to release the 2 father and son guards. The father still couldn't believe that the person he had helped was actually a North Korean spy. At the same time, in the Yong-ro dorm, Gang-moo's wound was bleeding uncontrollably, so he stubbornly sat up. Seeing this, Jun, wanting to help bandage him, angrily grabbed a gun intending to strike her in the head. However, the male lead came in and stopped her. She took him upstairs to get medical supplies. Throughout this process, she didn't say a word, and at that moment, they felt like strangers. This made him very uncomfortable. He really wanted to explain himself to her. When they reached the stairs, he pulled her back towards the bottom where he had set up a landmine. It was at this point that she finally spoke, asking him, "So, you're really a spy? All this time, I've been harboring a spy." Faced with her questions, he only gently warned her not to be too curious, or she would die. Yong-ro went downstairs to treat Gang-moo's wound. She felt incredibly remorseful for helping Soo-ho, which had caused him to end up in this situation. Gang-moo reached out to comfort her. Taking advantage of the fact that no one was paying attention, Gang-moo signaled to Yong-ro to give him the medical tweezers in case of danger. Outside, Han and her teammates were planning an assault. Then, Director In entered and reminded them not to act on their own because the Minister of National Defense's daughter, Yong-ro, was inside. Minister Chansu, upon hearing that his daughter was being held hostage, became extremely worried. He called the North Korean minister, hoping he would order the other side to release her. After learning that Soo-ho had been attacked by South Korean police, the North Korean minister became furious, threatening to cancel Operation Phoenix if they didn't ensure Soo-ho's safe return. Minister Chansu had no choice but to go directly to the scene to direct operations, hoping to find an opportunity to release Soo-ho and his comrades. Secretary Nam T, after receiving the news, also went there immediately to facilitate communication between the 2 sides. The police placed a phone at the door. Soo-ho asked Nam T to come get it. When Hana saw the male lead standing at the door, she lost her composure and stood up, aiming her gun directly at him. Fortunately, a teammate quickly deflected the bullet. Seeing the other side turn on them, Jun upstairs frantically fired his gun. The male lead had to risk running out to pull Gang-moo and the phone back inside. Minister Chansu, who had just arrived, upon hearing this news, became furious and removed Hana from the operation. He then called Soo-ho, telling him to keep the hostages safe. In 30 minutes, he was to follow the secret tunnel out. He would secretly bring him back to North Korea to increase his credibility. He also sent a signal to him. Soo-ho went to Yong-ro's room and turned on the radio. When a song came on, his superior had told him that back in the military, when this song was played on the Pyongyang station, it meant the orders had changed and he had to carry them out unconditionally. He reminded his comrades to prepare to execute their plan. Before leaving, he went downstairs to look at Yong-ro for a long time. The female lead was currently fast asleep. He tried to memorize her face because this departure might mean they would never see each other again. At the same time, in the sea near the island, a South Korean naval ship collided with a North Korean ship. Because they were too eager to fight, the South Korean naval personnel sunk the North Korean ship. They didn't know how they would explain this to the North Korean minister. Secretary Nam betrayed them by deciding to double-cross when the protagonist and his team exited through the secret tunnel. The South Korean police had secretly ambushed them. Sensing danger, Soo-ho signaled for his comrades to retreat back inside. As soon as the headlights came on, they immediately shot one of his teammates in the leg. The protagonist quickly shot out the lights and threw a smoke bomb to blind the enemy and get his teammate inside. Worried about Yong-ro, the minister's daughter, Chansu grabbed the walkie-talkie and ordered the police to retreat. Inside, Gang-moo was leading everyone to escape when he bumped into Jun, who was also retreating. Jun raised his gun, threatening and demanding that the hostages return to their positions. Gang-moo lunged at him, causing a struggle and bullets to fly everywhere. Shattered glass injured the female lead's hand. After a period of fighting, Gang Mu gained the upper hand, but was hit by a bullet from the protagonist, which knocked the tweezers out of his hand. Enraged, Jun got up and beat him badly. He even pulled out his gun to finish him off, but the protagonist intervened. He advised Jun to stay calm in situations like this. Seeing the wound on Yong-ro's hand, the protagonist felt heartbroken. Taking advantage of the fact that his teammates were also injured, he ordered her to take the first aid kit and follow him. But she ended up just watching him treat his teammates on the way back. He pulled her down to sit and was going to bandage her wound, but Yong-ro pushed his hand away. However, he stubbornly grabbed her hand again. This time, she didn't resist. She said that if he felt guilty towards her, he should let everyone go, and she would stay as a hostage instead. But the protagonist said that tomorrow he would find a way to get her out to repay her for saving his life. And after that, they would no longer owe each other. Hearing the words, "no longer owe each other," her heart ached. It turned out that for him, their time together was just a debt repaid for saving his life, nothing more. And she had thought that he might have had a little genuine feeling for her. The next day, the protagonist requested that the South Korean side send in a doctor to help them treat their injuries within 20 minutes. Taking that opportunity, Minister Chansu also negotiated release a few hostages. Due to the limited time and the lack of anyone suitable, Secretary General Nam T decided to send his own daughter, Dr. Kang, to assist. Being a weak and timid person, she refused. But after hearing his sweet talk, she reluctantly agreed. Hana was also tasked with disguising herself as a nurse and accompanying Dr. Kang to help everyone. As per the agreement, the male lead would release a few people first. He had obtained the list from the principal and prioritized students with pre-existing health conditions. Among the 9 released, 3 were from room 207. This sparked a wave of controversy among the students at the school. However, upon hearing her name, Yong-ro refused to get up. Bun Ok stood up, criticizing everyone, claiming that Yong-ro was the source of the problem. Why was she being released, while others weren't? She demanded a redraw, but little did Bun Ok know that she was the last person the male lead had chosen to release. She had effectively ruined her own chance. At that moment, the police also brought in Dr. Kang and Hana. After confirming they were not carrying any weapons, the male lead called Dr. Kang in to treat his comrades. Upon seeing Dr. Kang, the male lead's face showed clear surprise and shock. They knew each other from before. Once everything was settled, they made the final decision on who would be released. Yong-ro was still among them. Just then, Yong-ro had an asthma attack and wanted to give her spot to another student. Seeing this, everyone clamored to be released as well. Yong-ro revealed to the male lead that she was the daughter of the Minister of National Defense. Therefore, she asked him to release everyone and keep her instead. Upon hearing this, the male lead was stunned, rendered speechless. He told her that she wouldn't have another chance to be released and announced to everyone that because Yong-ro wasn't leaving, only 9 people would be released. Furious, Rong demanded he release one more person. The male lead pressed his gun against her, enunciating each word clearly. "Who do you think you are to me? You're just a human shield." At that moment, the female lead's eyes filled with despair. Each word, each phrase, was like a knife piercing her heart. She tried to look at him, but why was it still the same face, still the same person, yet so different? The male lead ordered Jun to place Yong-ro by the window, out of suspicion. Her words had prompted the male lead to meet with the principal, where he learned the truth. She was indeed the daughter of the Minister of National Defense, Yoon Chan-soo. The male lead's face darkened. The son of a North Korean minister and the daughter of a South Korean Minister of National Defense. It turned out they were 2 lines destined to intersect only once, and could never have a happy ending. On their side, Soo-ho seeks out Dr. Kang to inquire about his comrade's injuries. She signals for him to be quiet, as there are listening devices installed in the walls. Then, she shows him the writing on her arm. Through this, he learns that the entire dormitory has been bugged and that the South Korean Special Forces will be raiding soon. Knowing they are trying to trick him, Soo-ho goes to speak with Gang Mu. He intentionally makes sure that those outside can hear him. He has planted bombs throughout the building. If they dare to act without thinking, he will detonate them, killing himself along with the 70 hostages. Hearing this, the minister and his secretary feel a chill and immediately devise another plan. The next day, as promised, Suho allows Hana to release 10 more hostages. There is just over a week until the presidential election. The leaders need to quickly free the hostages in order to regain the trust of the people of South Korea. Knowing that the North Korean agents have 300 billion won in their possession, Minister Chansu calls North Korean Minister Lim Di-dok, who is also Suho's father, to discuss killing the 3 North Korean agents inside the dormitory. He will return the money to Minister Lim. Although he is a leader, Minister Lim is also a father who loves his son. He disagrees and demands that all 3 be returned unharmed. Just as he finishes speaking, his secretary enters and tells Minister Lim that someone needs to see him. After he leaves, the North Korean deputy minister calls Chansu back and says to kill all 3 agents and return the money to them. After eavesdropping on her call, the secretary reports this to Minister Lim. It turns out that he was only pretending to be a good father. Inside the dormitory at this time, despite discovering a pistol hidden in Dr. Kang's bag, he goes mad, repeatedly physically assaulting the doctor, then pushes her to the window, intending to kill her to warn those outside not to deceive them again. But the protagonist stops him. While the 2 men are struggling, they accidentally kick the gun to Young-ro's feet. Seeing the tense situation, she picks up the gun, points it directly at them, and shakily says, "Release the doctor." The protagonist gently advises her to put down the gun because it could harm her. Gang Moo urges Jun to spare Dr. Kang because his comrade is severely injured. If he kills the doctor, no one will dare to come in here to treat them. The moment Jun lowered his gun, the sniper outside shattered the window, and though they immediately dove out of the way, they began firing wildly back at them. The male lead immediately embraced Young-ro, shielding her from the bullets. As he was lowering to the floor, he accidentally dropped the paper airplane he had picked up the day before. Young-ro picked up the plane. She hadn't realized he had read her words and was carrying the plane with him. Looking up from the lake, she waited for him to say something, but the male lead once again disappointed her. He reached over, snatched the plane from Young-ro's hand, and pushed her through the window. While no one was paying attention, Hana had run outside, calling for the special forces to rescue the hostages. However, because they didn't have orders from their superiors, no one dared to act. Having been deceived by South Korean leaders too many times, Suho called Minister Chansu, informing him that he would kill a random person within the next 10 minutes as punishment for their deception. After hanging up, he went outside, removing all the listening devices that had been planted in the dormitory, causing the leaders outside to panic and be bewildered as to what was happening. As they walked downstairs, bringing Dr. Kang to the room, she revealed her true identity. It turned out that Dr. Kang was a high-ranking North Korean special agent, sent to bring them back home safely. She told Suho to check the new directives from a North Korean leader. After decoding them, they learned that the leadership had reached an agreement with South Korea, requiring them not to kill any hostages and to return home after 10 days. In the middle of the night, while everyone was asleep, Suho went downstairs, untied Young-ro, and brought her to her room. Having not had any food for days, she looked haggard and had lost a lot of weight. She took the initiative to ask him about the paper airplane. Why did he have it? Was it because he saw it that he came back to the dormitory? Before the male lead could say anything, the television announced that her brother had passed away. The person responsible for his death was one of the male lead's comrades. Knowing her dearest loved one had passed, Young-ro immediately ran out. She wanted to go outside to learn the truth. The male lead ran after her, pulling her back. She was in pain, hitting him, repeatedly asking why they did that. What had he done wrong? In the face of her words and actions, the male lead didn't resist. He let her release her anger until Young-ro fainted from exhaustion. After taking Young-ro back to rest, Dr. Kang called him outside. She reminded him not to let personal feelings interfere with the bigger picture and to have complete faith in their country. Suho, after experiencing a nightmare, woke up and saw that she was tense and having difficulty breathing. Dr. Kang approached her, wanting to help. But as she unbuttoned her shirt, the doctor noticed a necklace on the female lead's neck. She remembered that Suho had previously said that this necklace was more important to him than his own life. While she was lost in thought, the female lead ripped off the Roman 4 drip and ran outside. Yong-ro asked the male lead to let her go outside to attend her brother's funeral, but he refused. He took her back to the gathering area and then went to his room to get the scarf that her brother had given her. When he showed Yong-ro the keepsake from her brother, she burst into tears. The next day, she was distraught, like a lost soul, not eating or drinking, causing everyone great concern. Dr. Kang advised Su-ho to release 30 people to make it easier to control her. He asked if he wanted to release anyone, but she wanted to test him. Su-ho nonchalantly said, "Keep the daughter of the Minister of National Defense, the rest can be released." 30 hostages were released, but Yong-ro and her roommates still had to stay behind. Perhaps he wanted to keep the other 3 to take care of her during her slump. While getting hot water in the kitchen, Bun-ok accidentally discovered the male lead's backpack containing money and weapons. At this moment, the addicted son of the security guard ran in to steal the money and grabbed a rifle. Unfortunately for the enemy, there was no ammunition in the rifle. Realizing his mistake, he and the security guard knelt down and begged for their lives. Seeing his chance, the security guard shot and killed the addict. Gang-moo challenged him to dare shoot him, since his superiors had ordered that no hostages be killed, so the male lead locked the 3 of them in the prayer room. Here, the security guard showed Gang-moo a secret path leading to the cabin on the mountain. He followed the security guard's instructions and ran outside to call the special forces to storm in and rescue the hostages. But when they received orders from Nam-ti, they opened fire to force him to return. Gang-moo returned to the basement and discovered the principal's listening room, which had been set up to monitor the students. He accidentally overheard Dr. Kang's conversation with Su-ho from the previous day. He also learned that the leaders of the 2 countries were working together on Operation Phoenix to help Nam-ti win the presidency. On the other side, the male lead, after finding out about Gang-moo's actions, called Nam-ti to ask why he had opened fire to force him back in. Nam-ti reminded him to keep a close eye on Gang-moo, and after the presidential election, they would bring him and his team back home. Gang-moo now understood that the South Korean leaders did not actually want to rescue the hostages. They were only using the situation to democratize the presidency, and then they would kill everyone. Gang-moo told this to Su-ho, hoping that he could join him in saving everyone. However, Su-ho remained steadfastly loyal to the country he had chosen, trusting and ready to sacrifice himself for the honor of his nation. It had been 3 days since her brother's death, and Yong-ro desperately wanted to go outside and see him one last time. She went to Gang-moo, asking if he could help her, but he advised her against acting rashly because Su-ho was holding the detonator on his person. If cornered, he would detonate the place. When he saw Jun leading Yong-ro to the restroom, Su-ho told him to go back and guard the hostages and entrusted Yong-ro to him. He took her to the medical room to bandage her wounds. Once they were alone, she asked him about the paper airplane again. Su-ho said that he had found it behind the dorm. He also expressed that he didn't want to hurt anyone. In a few days, everyone would be released, and everything would be over. In truth, Su-ho desperately wanted to let her go right then, but he couldn't. As he turned to leave, Yong-ro stood up and hugged him from behind. Su-ho turned and hugged her back tightly. Taking the opportunity, Yong-ro took the detonator from Su-ho and questioned him. "Why do you say you don't want to hurt anyone but then plant a bomb in the dorm?" He explained that he did it for self-defense. There were hundreds of police outside. As a team leader, he had to do it to protect himself and his subordinates. But at this moment, she couldn't hear a word he was saying. Yong-ro ran outside with the detonator. Su-ho quickly chased after her. After a brief struggle, he retrieved it. He asked her to trust him one last time. Over the past few days, seeing her suffering and emotionally broken, he felt terrible, but he couldn't do anything for her except watch. All their actions were seen by Dr. Kang outside. Her expression was confused, and it was unclear what she was thinking. After learning that the principal had been eavesdropping on the entire dorm but didn't report that Yong-ro was hiding a spy, Gang-moo directly asked her if she was a North Korean spy. Upon hearing Gang-moo's question, she threw a glass of water in his face and warned him to shut his mouth and not speak recklessly. At this moment, Su-ho arrived and took Gang-moo to his room. He punched him in the face for revealing the detonator situation to the female lead. But Gang-moo explained that he did it only to stop Yong-ro from escaping. Gang-moo once again urged him to cooperate, as he was sure that even the North Korean command had abandoned them. Although Suho had said before that he trusted his country and its leaders, the events that had happened had already sown seeds of doubt in his heart. It's just that he didn't want to believe that his own father would be willing to sacrifice his son for power. Suho said to Gangmu, "Tomorrow when Hana transports the military supplies, have her find evidence to prove that what you're saying is true." After seeing Suho carelessly let the female lead obtain the detonator, Dr. Kang demanded he give it back to her and reminded him to regain his revolutionary spirit, otherwise, she would kill him. The next day, Hana delivered supplies and some items as requested by the South. Hana was very surprised to learn that Gangmu and Suho had become a team. Gangmu told her about his suspicions and instructed her to find evidence proving that the South Korean leadership had planned to kill all the hostages and then brought them in here during the next supply run. After everything was settled, Hana took 30 more hostages outside under the guise of going to the restroom. Bun Ok discovered a walkie-talkie hidden in a trash bin. After going outside, Hana secretly attached a listening device to Nam T's desk. She overheard a conversation between Nam T and Mayor Chansu. Nam T said that he would kill all the hostages to ensure his successful election, but Minister Chansu didn't want that, warning him that the chief would not let this pass. Everything went smoothly for only a short time before Nam T's subordinate discovered the listening device. He assumed that the person who planted the device was the delivery guy, so he immediately went to find him. In fact, the delivery guy was a reporter allied with Hana. He had been tracking the situation and found that all the released hostages were taken to a hospital by Nam T's men, waiting to be eliminated. The delivery guy met with Hana and told her about the evidence he had gathered. At that moment, the male lead asked Gangmu to contact Hana to ask if she had found anything yet. While they were about to tell Gangmu, Nam T's men arrived. Hana managed to hide the audio recording she had obtained under the car seat before the two were taken away. Inside the dormitory, everyone was putting together a plan to escape. Taking advantage of the spies' inattentiveness, the headmistress gave Young-ro the key to her secret room. The next morning, the students used the excuse that they had not been able to wash for days, making them feel very uncomfortable, and asked the male lead to allow them to wash their faces. While being let back into their rooms to get their belongings, the female lead grabbed an electronic watch with a timer and threw it down into the basement. Hearing a strange noise, Rue cautiously went down to the basement to investigate. Taking advantage of the lack of surveillance, Young-ro ran to the headmistress's room, opened the secret room, and hid inside. When they discovered it was just an electronic watch, Rue, despite realizing he had been tricked, immediately forced all of the students back into the hall and reported to Suho that the female lead had escaped. Immediately, he and Do split up to search for her. The headmistress led the female students to the prayer room and then escaped through the secret passage. Gangmu found Dr. Kang and told her that Jong was waiting for her on the 4th floor so they could escape together. He led her upstairs, and after she entered the room, he locked the door from the outside. At that moment, she realized her identity had been exposed. Waiting for Gangmu to leave, Dr. Kang broke the glass, opened the door, and went outside. He went into the headmistress's room. Hearing someone enter, Young-ro nervously dropped a tape disc. The noise made the male lead realize that she was inside the room. She fearfully covered her mouth to avoid making a sound. Suho advised her to trust him, saying that he would definitely get her out safely. Hearing a familiar knock, Young-ro softened. It was a special signal between the two of them. She remembered their days together before, the beautiful days when it was just him and her, without guns, without the division of countries. Just then, Gangmu entered, and the male lead and he started fighting. Using his experience as a North Korean agent, he quickly subdued him. But when Suho saw Young-ro about to attack him, he lost his focus. Seizing the opportunity, Gangmu immediately reversed the situation and pressed his gun against Suho's head. He escorted the male lead down to the prayer room, helping everyone disarm the bombs so they could escape. However, just as everyone was about to run outside, Dr. Kang appeared. She immediately reactivated the detonator, threatening and ordering all the hostages to return. But Gwang Ti still deliberately opened the door, and she immediately detonated a section of the school. After that horrific explosion, Minister Chansu was extremely worried, and he demanded that the male lead bring his daughter to the dining hall to prove that she was safe. Suho went down and brought Young-ro out as promised. Han, realizing that she was about to reveal Dr. Jun's identity, immediately fired a shot. Luckily, Suho dove in to save her life. He embraced Young-ro, doing his best to protect her. After the barrage of shots, his arm was seriously injured. Because Young-ro stubbornly disobeyed orders, Dr. Kang angrily slapped her. Witnessing the woman he loved being hurt, the male lead was in excruciating pain. But what was even more painful was that he couldn't do anything, because she was their superior. While the male lead was leading them down to the basement, Gang Moo persuaded him to request that the South Korean side send Hana in with provisions, because he believed that Hana had overheard something. The previous explosion had caused an uproar in South Korea. The parents of the students were also in an uproar, worried about their children. Nam-T suggested that the male lead record a video to send back to them to prove that all 34 hostages were safe. Seizing that opportunity, Suho then requested that the South Korean leaders let Hana bring in a camera. Dr. Kang ordered Jun to keep an eye on Suho because she knew that he was having thoughts against the party. She also revealed to him that she was given a special mission by the Vice Minister to keep an eye on Captain Lim Suho. If he ever had any deviant thoughts, he was to be killed without mercy. It was at this point that Dr. Kang reconsidered Suho's earlier words. They had suspected him from the beginning and were ready to kill a person who had dedicated his life to the country. So, would they really give up 300 billion won to save their special forces in North Korea? At this point, the Vice Minister found out that Dr. Kang's identity had been exposed. She advised the minister to kill everyone and take the enormous sum of money. That not only helped them consolidate their finances, but also helped him consolidate his power when his son sacrificed himself for the country. But the minister still pretended to be a loving father. He did not agree. Because how could he be happy when glory was exchanged for his son's life? Seeing the minister's decisiveness, the deputy minister had no choice but to order all the hostages to be killed after the election in South Korea concluded in order to protect Dr. Kang's identity. Because the principal had been locked up, Dr. Kang used money to bribe Bun Ok to help them manage the students in the dormitory and promised that after the job was done, all the hostages would be killed so that her collusion with the North Korean spies would not be exposed. Bun Ok knew that after the job was done, they would kill all the hostages, including herself, so she secretly used a walkie-talkie she found in the restroom the day before to contact the police outside. On the other side, Hana, after being released, immediately ran to retrieve the evidence she had hidden in the car the day before and gave it to Suho. After listening to the recording, the male lead was sure that his suspicions were correct, but he still stubbornly believed that his father had lost his leadership. He ran to the communications room, used the walkie-talkie to contact his comrades outside, and learned that his father was still the one with full authority. At this point, the male lead finally believed that his father had abandoned his son in exchange for 300 billion won. He recalled the past. It turned out he was just a child that his father had adopted when his younger sister was seriously ill and needed treatment. He had begged him to save his sister and promised to repay him with his life, even knowing that from the beginning, his father had adopted him only for political purposes. But when he found out that the person he had called father for over a decade did not hesitate to sacrifice him for power, he was truly heartbroken. They were wholeheartedly devoted to the party, willing to sacrifice themselves when the country was in danger. But what did they get in return? After understanding everything, Suho went down to the basement to release Gang Moo, Young-ro, and the principal. The male lead decided to join him in taking everyone out safely. They planned together to capture all the spies. Gang Moo went into the room and threatened Dr. Kang with a gun so that the male lead could go and take her gun, then tie her to a chair. Upon learning that Suho had joined forces with him, Dr. Kang angrily cursed him as a traitor. This was overheard by Bun Ok, who happened to be passing by. She ran down to report to Jun that Dr. Kang had been tied up by the male lead and Gang Moo. Jun immediately ran upstairs. As he was carefully scouting inside, the male lead rushed out of the room and grappled for the gun. Taking advantage of the moment he was off guard, Gang Moo pointed his gun at his head from behind and restrained him. The male lead played the recording that Hannah had obtained for Dr. Kang and Jun to hear, but they were still unmoved. Meanwhile, Bun Ok ran down to the basement and told Yong-ro that the spies had been captured and called Yong-ro upstairs to join everyone else. Because she had been tied up in the basement for days, Yong-ro was unaware that Bun Ok had been bribed by the spies, so she went with her without suspicion. But halfway there, Bun Ok pulled out a gun and threatened the female lead, forcing her to follow her. She put Yong-ro in the room where the others were talking, using the female lead's life to demand that Suho and Gang Mu untie Dr. Kang and Jun. In the midst of the extremely tense situation, the principal walked in and pulled Yong-ro out. She stood in front of Bun Ok's gun and told her to shoot her. In the heat of the moment, Bun Ok actually fired the gun, but luckily, there were no bullets in it. At this point, she finally understood that Dr. Kang had only wanted to use her. Suho and Gang Mu told everyone that the South Korean leaders had no intention of rescuing the hostages. They were just exploiting this matter for the presidential election. After the election concluded, no one could survive. Suho and Gang Mu wanted everyone to cooperate with them so they could get out of there safely. To show their sincerity, Suho allowed everyone to move freely within the dormitory after being released. Bun Ok immediately ran back to her room, using a walkie-talkie to contact Chief An. As Bun Ok was about to reveal that Gang Mu and the male lead were in cahoots, Gang Mu lunged at her, snatched the walkie-talkie, and cut off the connection. He advised Bun Ok to obediently listen to them, because no matter who she provided information to, they wouldn't spare her. The next day, Hana brought a camera and food inside, as requested by the male lead. They discussed how to expose Nam T's group's plan. Hana suggested copying the audio recording and distributing it to newspapers and television stations. According to the plan, Suho went to retrieve the cassette tape to make multiple copies. He happened to find the cassette tape he had bought for Yong-ro. Inside, it recorded her confession of love to him. I wondered what it felt like to fall in love at first sight. But the moment I saw him, I immediately knew. Even though our hands just brushed for a moment, my heart started beating. Could this be my first love? Every word of the female lead was filled with affection for Suho. She was so happy to have met him, thinking it was the luck of her life. But fate had it that, simply because they had different nationalities, they couldn't be together. Dr. Kang, who was tied up in the hallway at this time, sat reminiscing about the past when she slipped and fell down a cliff while on a mission. The male lead had saved her life. They had overcome a blizzard together. At the time of their farewell, Dr. Kang had promised that if they had the chance to meet again, she would certainly repay him for saving her life. The next day, the male lead and Gang Mu took Dr. Kang and Jun down to the basement. After hearing Gang Mu's words, Dr. Kang suggested making herself a cup of coffee. Realizing that she had shifted her mindset, Gang Mu took her back to her room. They found that a high-ranking agent had also shown signs of betraying the party, leaving him alone as a faction of one. He revealed to the male lead that his superiors had seen from the beginning that Suho could betray the country at any time. Therefore, they had assigned Jun the task of monitoring Suho and being prepared to kill him if he showed any signs of deviation in his thinking. He also emphasized to the male lead that he had been disposable from the start, discarded by his own country. Upon hearing these words, Suho, deeply distressed, went upstairs. Yong-ro, after hearing everything, understood the male lead's difficult circumstances and felt great sympathy for him. Yong-ro went upstairs, took a box from the room, and ran to find the male lead. They went together into their familiar room. The female lead took the contents out of the box and made coffee for him. She said that it was her mother's favorite type of coffee. Her mother used to say that after drinking a cup of that coffee, she would forget a sad memory from the past. He smiled at her silly ideas, but took a sip and said that he wanted to forget about the time he had held a gun to Yong-ro's head. Although that had hurt her deeply and was very disappointing, after the events of the past few days, Yong-ro also understood that he had been forced to do it. She raised the cup to her lips, took a sip, and said, "I want to forget about that too." This statement was like an acknowledgement that she had forgiven his actions. The male lead took another sip. He said that he wanted her to forget this moment too. Then he placed a kiss on Yong-ro's lips. Knowing that Dr. Kang's beliefs were wavering, the male lead went to speak to her and try to convince her. He untied her. While Suho went inside to make himself a cup of tea, Dr. Kang gently grabbed a pen from the table and approached him from behind to attack. The male lead quickly grabbed the pen, but he didn't attack Dr. Kang back. Instead, he just asked her if his father had ordered her to eliminate him, and then he handed her the pen, letting her decide. At this point, Dr. Kang realized that Minister Lim was Suho's father. She was filled with sympathy for his circumstances and also began to lose trust in Minister Lim Jae-rak, because if he had no mercy for his own son, how could agents like her and her comrades be sure that he would keep them safe? Minister Lim received a report stating that Gang Mu and Suho had colluded together to rescue the hostages, while both Dr. Kang and Jun had been captured. Who, then, was the one who had informed him? Meanwhile, Secretary General Nam T also received the news from Minister Lim. He was extremely angry, calling to criticize Gang Mu and berating him that he would be despised by the entire Republic of Korea. Hana, after going outside, cosplayed as a pink rabbit and infiltrated the television station, broadcasting the evidence she had collected. But strangely, the next day, there was still no news coverage. It turned out that all the evidence had been collected by Nam T's people and taken back to him. Upon learning that they were trying to ruin his boss's plans, he ordered his men to plant bombs around the school. Nam T and Chansu also discovered that Hana was the one who sent the evidence to the television station. They ordered her arrest. As Hana was driving up, 2 police officers announced that Secretary Nam T wanted to see her. Sensing something was amiss, she immediately made a U-turn and fled. After discovering that Gang Mu had colluded with Suho, the 2 men quickly began searching for the mole. Tiger Dorm was searched room by room, and everyone's background was checked. They found the security guard and the cafeteria cook very suspicious. They went down to search the security guard's room but found nothing suspicious. At this point, Gang Mu suddenly remembered that the cook had told him someone had stolen chicken from the refrigerator. They immediately went down to check and discovered a walkie-talkie hidden inside a dead chicken. They called the cook and the security guard up to question them. When asked harshly if she was a spy who was being paid in cash, the cook panicked and hid under the table. The security guard rushed to calm her and revealed to the 2 men that because she had lived through war as a child, she was very easily triggered. Unable to endure that, she had left North Korea and fled to South Korea, and had been cooking in the dorm ever since. Upon learning that the cook was a North Korean defector, everyone assumed she was a spy. However, the male lead didn't think so. But he didn't have time to investigate that matter because everyone in the dorm was now in a very precarious situation. South Korean special forces had been deployed and might storm in to rescue Yong-ro and then blow up the entire area. Upon learning of this, the female lead requested to see her father, contacted Minister Chansu, arranged to meet him at the mountain shack at 10 p.m. that night, and requested that he come alone. That evening, Minister Chansu arrived as agreed. As soon as he stepped outside, Yong-ro, with tears in her eyes, asked her father, "Are you willing to kill everyone for the sake of winning the election?" In response to his daughter's question, he denied it. The female lead begged him to save everyone, as everything was her doing. How could she live well when her friends had to die? While Suho was on alert, a South Korean special agent shot him. Jong bravely threw himself in front to allow him to retreat back inside. Minister Chansu ordered a ceasefire, but no one listened, so he was shot and injured by his own men. Suho took Yong-ro into the bunker. As soon as she saw him, even though she sarcastically said, "A soldier of the Great Republic, in love with the daughter of the South Korean Minister of Defense." Bonoke was standing above and overheard their conversation. She was very surprised to learn that Yong-ro was the daughter of the Minister of Defense. Taking advantage of this, she devised a plan to save her own life. Yong-ro was heartbroken upon hearing the news that her father had been critically injured and was in the hospital. Her brother and mother had already abandoned her, and now he was her only remaining family. She was terrified that her father would also leave her. Although all of the main characters and the viewers knew that Nam T had intentionally attempted to murder Minister Chansu, the media was reporting that North Korean spies had attacked the Minister of Defense while he was negotiating the release of hostages. The headmaster suspected that Nam T would use this as an excuse to kill everyone, then blamed the North Korean spies for killing the hostages. As predicted, that evening a special forces team attacked the dormitory. releasing a toxic gas inside the building, causing widespread panic. In this critical situation, Dr. Kang came up with a plan. When Nam T charged in, Suho would use Dr. Kang as a hostage to threaten him. She would feign fear and beg Nam T to retreat to save her. Since ancient times, heroes have been known to fall for beautiful women. So a scoundrel like Nam T was no different. He was deeply in love with Dr. Kang. Despite his ambition to become president, for the sake of his love, he had no choice but to order a retreat and cancel the plan. Although they escaped this time, Nam T could attack at any moment. They gathered together to discuss a response plan. Dr. Kang suggested that she be released to retrieve the money Nam T intended to use for the transaction with North Korea. But Gang Moo didn't trust her. He worried that once she was out, and with Minister Chan Su in the hospital, Nam T would have nothing holding him back from blowing up the entire compound. Suho proposed informing Minister Chan Su's wife that the ruling party's Secretary General, Nam T, had intentionally attempted to murder the Minister of Defense. He believed that after she learned this, she would try to stop Nam T to save her daughter. Hana disguised herself as a doctor and infiltrated the hospital to deliver this news to Minister Chan Su's wife. Though she had no affection for Yong-ro, out of concern for her husband's position, she immediately went to the scene and threatened Nam T, warning him not to act rashly, or she would reveal the reason for Minister Chan Su's injury to the government. Before leaving the dormitory, Dr. Kang revealed to the male lead that she wished that after she successfully returned with the money, they could escape to another country together. But the male lead said that he had to return so that his younger sister could live. Gang Moo called Hana, revealing that Dr. Kang was a North Korean spy and telling her to observe her every move. Once she obtained the money, Hana was to immediately seize it and return to save the hostages and kill Suho and his team. Suho, standing outside, overheard the entire conversation. He lunged at Gang Moo and punched him, asking, "Are all you little birds a bunch of backstabbing cowards?" Just a few minutes earlier, he had received orders from his superiors to embrace a suicide bomb alongside the hostages, or his younger sister would be executed. Now, here he was, discovering that the very person he trusted was plotting to eliminate him. The male lead's faith was utterly shattered. He went down to the prayer room and found Yong-ro there, also praying for her father. They talked about the future, imagining what it would be like if they were just ordinary people living in a world without war, without barriers, and how happy they could be. But sadly, it was just an impossible dream. Suho promised the female lead that he would definitely protect her and everyone else and keep them safe. Yong-ro looked at him for a moment, then asked, "Then who will protect you?" He just smiled in response to her question. That's right, ever since he was young, he had to accept Minister Lim as his father to protect his younger sister. Growing up, he became a special agent to serve his country, to protect the people of North Korea. Now, he was doing everything he could to protect the woman he loved and the innocent people. Not once had he been protected by anyone else. He went to try and persuade, even though he knew his superior was the vice minister, a man who had always been in opposition to his father. After talking for a while, the director agreed, but then sent word to the vice minister about Dr. Kang going to collect the money that Nam T was supposed to give them. Upon receiving the news, the vice minister immediately questioned Minister Lim and ordered Suho to be killed immediately in the hospital. Minister Chansu called for Hana. He trusted her because she had previously warned his wife. He had suspected Hana of colluding with Suho, seeing her go in and out of the dorm many times, but hadn't punished her. Minister Chansu asked her to use the radio to speak with Suho, telling him that he would prepare a vehicle for him and his team to leave and then get all the hostages out. Afterwards, he would set off a bomb so that everyone would think that he and his team had committed suicide, thus keeping their families safe in North Korea. But Yong-ro was still worried. She spoke with her father and said that she would go with Suho in the vehicle until she saw him leave safely. But just as she hung up, the minister's wife reminded him, "This is the time for promotion. You shouldn't be soft-hearted and release people who know about the election scandal." At the same time, the president also called, putting pressure on him. He had no choice but to secretly change his plans. Suho and Yong-ro were now sad because they would soon have to say goodbye. He took off the necklace he was wearing and put it back on her neck once more. Yong-ro promised that next time they met, she would definitely return the necklace to him. After learning that the Minister of National Defense would release everyone, Bun-ok was worried that they would expose her for colluding with the spies. So she called Chief and to stop them from taking the hostages out. But he ignored her and told her, "Don't contact me again." The principal found out that Bun-ok had informed Chief An and was furious. In the midst of their struggle, they accidentally dropped a photo of her with Bun-ok's sister. It was at this moment that the principal revealed the truth. The principal and Bun-ok's sister had once been close friends. However, her sister stole her fiancé. He was an opponent of the dictatorship, so Bun-ok's sister was arrested and tortured to death by Director An. Dr. Kang knocked out a South Korean special agent, then put on his clothes to infiltrate the dormitory, managing to rescue Soo-ho just as he was about to be killed by Yong-ro. Nam-t ordered the special forces to blow up the dormitory at exactly 10 p.m. But at this moment, Minister Chan-soo arrived to arrest him for harboring spies. Faced with these baseless accusations, he immediately denied everything, stating that his relationship with Dr. Kang was only that of a patient and Dr. Pats. Right then, Dr. Kang called to inform him that he had brought 300 billion won into the dormitory. If he blew up the place, that money would be lost. Hana also presented intimate photos of Nam-t and Dr. Kang. He now had nothing to say and could only let the police arrest him along with Director, and as their plan had failed. Consequently, Minister Lim was stripped of his position. As he was being taken away, he told the Vice Minister a truth. Soo-ho, the man she had ordered to be killed, was actually the son she had abandoned 18 years ago, and added that his people were still inside the dormitory. If she disobeyed his orders, Minister Lim would order Soo-ho to be killed immediately. However, he overestimated the Vice Minister's maternal instincts. She was unmoved. She even told him to order the spy to kill her own son, Soo-ho. After learning the truth, Soo-ho was devastated. His foster father had abandoned him, and now even his birth mother wanted him dead. Dr. Kang went to comfort him and gave him the huge sum of money, with the password being, "The day you saved us." After witnessing Dr. Kang's deep feelings for the male lead, Yong-ro silently left. At this moment, someone else was eavesdropping on their conversation. It was the security guard. It turned out that he was the spy planted by Soo-ho's father. It was now the appointed time, but no parents or journalists had shown up. Gang-moo and the male lead were worried that Minister Chan-soo would break his promise, so they called him to question him. After the male lead threatened not to return the 300 billion won as planned, he staked his daughter's life as a vow to save everyone in the dormitory. The male lead didn't trust Minister Chan-soo, but Gang-moo assured him that he would save everyone and advised him to leave with his teammates. The male lead went upstairs to say goodbye to Yong-ro, giving her the scarf that her brother had given her. It was very precious to her. She told him that he absolutely had to meet her again to return the scarf, but the male lead refused to take it. He told her not to wait for him because the moment he left this building, he would forget her existence. Perhaps, even when saying these things, the male lead wasn't feeling good inside. But because he knew that he and she could not have a good ending, he had to say those harsh words so as not to ruin the life of the person he loved. Right when Soo-ho's group was about to leave, a female student ran to the principal and Gang-moo to report that she saw the security guard using a walkie-talkie to contact someone, saying they would kill Soo-ho and Dr. Kang. Yong-ro immediately ran to stop Soo-ho, but it was too late. The four of them got into a car together and left, but they encountered a security checkpoint. Because Soo-ho and Dr. Kang's faces were already known to the police, they decided to get out and walk a different way, letting their two teammates drive off in the car. On the other side, Ha-na risked her life to break into the prison to save the reporter, and then they went together to the television station, using the radio to inform everyone that the 33 hostages being held inside the dormitory were part of a political plot planned to serve the upcoming election. The broadcast, though short, created a huge media storm. People rallied together with signs in front of the school, protesting and demanding that the government return their children. Minister Chan-soo ordered Director and to send people to arrest Ha-na and shoot the reporter dead. Realizing that things had already gone completely haywire and that the Minister of Defense only wanted to save his daughter, the president ordered Nam-t to be released to replace Minister Chan-soo to clean up the mess. Su-ho and Dr. Kang had by then reached the port. When they got in the car to leave, the news reported that Minister of Defense Chan-soo had been removed from his position due to Yong-ro actively helping North Korean spies. Upon learning that the female lead was in danger, Su-ho decided to turn back to save her. At that moment, the security guard and his group showed up. They were the ones who had killed Ju and his teammate. The male lead didn't show any surprise when he learned that the guard was the spy that his father had planted. Su-ho informed him that Nam-T had taken power and that Yong-ro was in danger. The security guard, who regarded the female lead as his own daughter, fought his own teammates to give the male lead the chance to return to save Yong-ro. Before turning back, Dr. Kang gave him the money so he could flee to another country, but he refused to take it. She had already sacrificed too much for him. He couldn't owe her any more. He wished for her to strive to survive and to help the loved ones of the comrades who had fallen. Knowing that everyone's survival was unlikely, Gang Moo called Minister Chan-soo, begging him to spare the hostages. He promised to provide testimony favorable to the Ministry of National Defense. The minister ordered former chief and to call reporters and to release everyone within 5 minutes. However, Director Chan-soo told him that Nam-T was currently the commander on the scene and suggested the man leave. Outside, Nam-T even brought tanks to make a show for the public. He declared that he was there to deal with the spies who dared to take innocent people hostage, and to save his daughter. Minister Chan-soo disabled the detonator, infuriating Nam-T, who punched him. At this moment, the minister could only place his trust in Hana. He ordered his subordinates to release her to assist Gang Moo. Meeting expectations, after being released, she commandeered a bus and sped to the scene. Bun Ok, upon learning of Chief N's cruelty, decided to join forces with everyone. She contacted Chief N and delivered a false report that some students carrying banners were climbing to the rooftop to call for help. This diverted Nam-T's group's attention. The Special Forces team immediately moved to the front, but taking this opportunity, the principal and Gang Moo directed the students to escape through the tunnel. Unfortunately, the cook triggered a bomb, causing it to explode. Su-ho turned back to take down the guards at the back entrance, facilitating the students' exit. At this time, Hana also arrived and together they helped the female students onto the bus. However, Gang Moo decided to stay behind because the principal and Yong-ro were still trapped inside. The Special Forces team quickly rushed in. Su-ho and his comrades fought them to protect everyone. The scene was incredibly chaotic. Everyone together went down the tunnel to escape, but they were blocked by the Special Forces team. Su-ho told Gang Moo to lead Yong-ro out while he stayed to fight. But as soon as she reached the door, Yong-ro decided to go back. Although he had killed all the people in the basement, the male lead was also severely wounded. At this point, all the exits were blocked. He and Yong-ro ran upstairs. Knowing he couldn't survive, Su-ho used his walkie-talkie to contact Nam-T, saying that he had the enormous sum of money and that only Yong-ro knew the password. He said this so that Nam-T would spare her life. Before long, the Special Forces stormed in. He shielded her from the bullets with his own body. In the final moments of his life, he did everything to protect the girl he loved. He gave her the cassette tape, telling her she must live well, and then closed his eyes, watching as Yong-ro was taken away by Nam-T. After all was said and done, Secretary General Nam-T, Minister Chan-soo, and Chief N were all arrested. A new president was also elected. Life returned to its normal rhythm. One day, at the coffee shop where they first met, she opened the tape that Su-ho had given her and listened. In it contained the heartfelt words that he had never dared to say. From the first time I met you at Zemo Cafe, when you reached out to catch those matches with me, I fell in love with you right then. If I were just a normal guy, I would have asked you out that day, and we would be a couple, right? I wanted to spend time with you at the amusement park and watch movies together. But how did I become someone who shouldn't meet you? But I never regretted meeting you. Thank you for blooming a flower in the heart of someone as cold as me. I will go, but I will always remember you, Jong-ro. I love you. The movie concluded with much regret. If they had just been normal people, born in a world without war, without power struggles, then perhaps the ending would have been different.